Before I get started with this story, let me give a shout out to Little Miss Firecracker for sending it to me on Twitter. So as you can see by the screen, it says Census 2020, and it has, images of what will be people of various shades and colors of blue around the imagery that is the U.S. Now, the last time I talked about this was a couple weeks ago when I was talking about the declining population for PC. Well, according to this article that I'm going to read to you from the LA Times that was posted on September the 9th, now we are starting, this article is going to pretty much pinpoint as to another reason as to why the white population has fallen. Now, we already knew they were declining because of the low birth rates thing, but there's another reason as to why they fell as well, and most likely will continue to fall because of this same reason. This actually shocked me when I read it, but I'm gonna go ahead and get into it. As a matter of fact, let me start with the title. Why did so few Latinos identify themselves as white in the 2020 census? When I saw that, I put two and two together. The 2020 census results made a splash in mid-August with this clear message. A declining number of people in the United States identify themselves as white, and the shift is happening faster than many had predicted. But all the justified focus on the browning of America obscured a second storyline. The browning of brown America. Strikingly, the share of Latinos who identified their race as white in the 2020 census fell from about 53% in 2010 to about 20% in 2020. Do y'all see that drop? That's a 33% drop in 10 years. So the Latinos who used to identify themselves as white on the census now have identified themselves as what they actually are. That right there is another reason why the PC population dropped. Let's continue. The share who identify as other rose from 37% to 42%, and the share identifying as two or more races jumped from 6 to 33. These are big changes, ones that cannot be explained just by intermarriage and ones that challenge a narrative that Latinos will eventually assimilate into whiteness. So what's going on? Partly, the census shifts reflect a change in the way the government collects data. When it asks for race, the census in 2020 added prompts under the white category that included countries not associated with America's Latino population. Still, the move away from white is so dramatic that it could be other factors as well, such as xenophobic political climate that has made many Latinos aware that whiteness may not be easily within their reach. Wow. So now they are realizing that the gift of whiteness may not actually be up for grabs, at least for them. Sounds like some of them are coming to their senses. Yet, another part of the census story may be explained by the number of Latino millennials who are developing an identity as people of color, often in alliance with black. Well, we don't listen. Y'all know how I feel about that POC thing. Y'all know how I feel about that. I'm just reading the article. Asian American and indigenous groups. The BIPOC label has been adopted and supported by young people of many ethnic and racial groups since the racial justice protests prompted by the May 2020 police murder of George Floyd. Yet another piece of the puzzle may be found in a way that place identity and race identity have become intertwined. Our research, based on hundreds of interviews and statistical analysis, explores the demographic evolution of South Los Angeles. That data point that grabs everyone's initial interest is this. South LA was 80% black in 1970, but is now 2/3 Latino. Like all grabby takeaways, it can obscure as well as illuminate. We should ask ourselves, is Latino identity the same today as it was when the shift in South Central population first began? It turns out that the Mexican and Central American immigrants who moved to South LA in the late 1980s did see themselves as distinct from the homegrown black population. uh, the anti-black prejudices brought from their countries of origin in the street violence of the 1980s and 1990s led this first generation to shut in and shut out, largely keeping their distance from African American neighbors. Not so their children, second generation Latinos who grew up with black friends, listened to hip hop and were inspired by black teachers, mentors, and social justice advocates. Their lives were not free of the black-brown tensions. They sometimes even experienced so-called race riots at their schools, but the upshot is this. They developed a sense of self and home defined by place-based identity, one articulated as a strong affinity with black people, black culture, and the struggle for racial equity. So basically what they're saying is the new generation, they started to identify being with blacks or around black people even more, that out of that, they then found their identity. As usual, we are always used as the stepping stone for everybody else. And we are the ones that still are the ones who get stepped on or stepped over. Indeed, many Latinos raised in South LA feel distinct from friends and relatives in East LA whom they perceived as sometimes racist and often too nationalistic. For this generation, raised in an aura of blackness, as one of our respondents says, black-brown solidarity, which doesn't exist, is the name of the political game, and this is reflected in a set of vibrant organizations such as Community Coalition, a group founded by Representative Karen Bass that organized in South LA based on a sense of shared fate. It's not all kumbaya. The Latino movement was made possible by a black exodus triggered by deindustrialization, job loss, gang warfare, and over-policing. South LA is doing better on all fronts, but the decline in the black population has created a set of worries about displacement and erasure by both demography and gentrification. Still, what we see in South LA is not one group taking over the space of another through ethnic succession, but rather a process of racial and ethnic sedimentation and interweaving. This process complicates traditional models of neighborhood change, and it should complicate our ideas about fixed racial, ethnic, and national identities. Latinos in the 2020s have been through the Trump presidency and the failure of our nation to live up to its supposed ethos as a nation of immigrants. In major urban areas in the United States, the two populations now living in the closest proximity are black and Latino, often finding common cause, challenging how they get left behind and kept behind. Given that, we suggest it's no surprise that whiteness lost its allure for Latinos in the 2020 census. Understanding the fluidity the data reveal and how racial identity is dependent on time and space will be key as the nation becomes increasingly majority-minority. The future of who Americans will be is not foreordained by who we were or who we are now, but by the ties we build and the experiences we have with one another going forward. Basically, to PC out there, y'all should be very afraid because many of y'all wasn't expecting this. Now they probably gonna have to lean more heavily onto the Asians, but something tells me the Asian American community is probably gonna possibly do the same thing. I don't know. I didn't expect the Latinos to do this, but I wasn't expecting in this article, because I didn't read that far ahead, for them to, mention the whole, bringing black people up. Like, I got a little bit of a backstory about, black people pretty much getting displaced in California, especially in South LA over the years, mainly because of the emergence of Latinos and, Mexicans coming over and, pretty much in a way displacing. And like I said, all of this stuff is done by design. It's not one of the things where it just kind of happens. It's all by design. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And I'm sure many of my California subscribers who live out there will be able to go into this into way more detail when it comes to this whole situation right here. Because gentrification is affecting everybody. It's everywhere. It's where I'm at. Like over like in DC, like just a few minutes from me. I can't tell you. Let's put it this way. The DC of 2021 looks a whole lot different than the DC of 2011 or even 2001. Trust me. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments.